my first big question, although our given theme is Asia's flux across several fronts, but first I would like to give each of you 5 minutes with this question. Is the world at a turning point, and how so? Preity first.
All right, let's get started. The billion-dollar question. Namaste, everyone. Ohayo gozaimasu. Honorable ministers, your excellencies, global leaders, and distinguished guests, I am delighted to be in Japan, and I am delighted to be on this opening plenary session to kick off this year's Asia Summit at Horasis. So good afternoon and welcome. I would like to start answering your question with a quote. The future of Japan's economic growth depends on us having the willpower and the courage to sail without hesitation onto the rough seas of global competition. The late, great Shinzo Abe-san. So, is the world at a turning point? Well, there is a very obvious and irreversible shift, I think, that we are witnessing, and this is in the balance of the power in the world today. So post-COVID and even post-conflict, I would add, the power is shifting. Powers of yesteryear are not going to be the powers of today or the powers of tomorrow. We are no longer a unipolar or a bipolar world. Instead, we enter into the universe of multipolarity. And as we enter this, I think we're forced to reevaluate the global order, as it were. I like to call it the great reshuffle of powers that we're witnessing. It's a long time coming. I believe that the center of the world is no longer Europe. I think somewhere deep down, Europe must realize that it's not the center of power and must grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, and that somehow the world's problems are not Europe's problems. It is 2022, and the top 3 economies in the world, in terms of PPP at least, are China, US, and India. By 2035, the top 3 will have shuffled a little bit. It's going to be China, India, and the US. And by 2040, 55% of the global economy will be in Asia, and the top 2 will be from Asia too. So I've always said that this is the Asian century, really the Asian decade, but the next 50 years will be seeing how Asia manages this great opportunity, because it affects the world at large, and I think something that we should all be paying very close attention to. And as these economies, look, the 2 of the top 3 economies happen to be in Asia. They also happen to be the 2 most populous countries in the world, India and China. As they get even more stronger and more powerful, they will undoubtedly dominate in the world of global economy as well. So what sort of Asia are we going to inherit? Is it an Asia that's going to succumb to the whims and fancies of the West? Or will it be an Asia that is exacerbated by, family feuds of Europe, or the proverbial West, I should say? It's definitely a crucial decade for Asia, for Asia's transformation, and I think there needs to be a real reassessment of national priorities, and to put the country's citizens as the most important thing, and they have a duty to their own citizens. Get the priorities right and get back on the right track. Beyond just numbers and statistics, I think the real question is this idea of who is really the global power in the world today. I mean, is it really the US? Is the US showing the world the way? Do they uphold morality and ethics more than any other nation? I think that's a highly debatable question. So in many ways, I think Asia's pragmatic realism contrasts and I think is of more value and worth than sometimes the empty rhetoric that we see on the other side. I think that when we look at where the world is today, it's absolutely at a turning point. The world is changing, and I think there's new powers that have come up, new ways of being, new leaders on the horizon. In fact, I look at India as a great example of truly an emerging power that needs to step up and show the way, a different way. And I think in the past it hasn't expressed itself clearly enough, but this is an opportunity for it to do so. The ability of India, China, and the US to work trilaterally is great, and it's one of the novel elements of the changing Asian landscape. Japan has been a great civilization in the past, and it should draw from its lineage and its legacy to redefine itself in the 21st century and become a commendable power. India needs to do the same. And there's no reason why they cannot. Specifically talking about India, I think it's a sweet spot. Fastest growing economy, highly digitalized, powerful military, has the scale and scope, will be the second largest GDP in the world soon. Is the only post-colonial nation to have remained a democracy for all of its years of independence. In many ways, it is also becoming the voice of the global South. And I think this Indian way needs to emerge more. And what is the Indian way? Well, it's keeping, trying to do the right thing in the world, not taking sides, but looking at your own national interests and making sure that your 1.4 billion citizens are taken care of. And this Indian way will be, hopefully, will set an example and navigate through the rough geopolitical tides that are ahead of us. Of course, we'll talk more in great detail of some of the more specific steps that countries can take and so on, but this is just a brief introduction for my my brief in the panel of we are absolutely at a fork, and I think it's a long time coming, and I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a time for Asia to truly step up to the global stage and be the real power that it can be in the world. I think the world awaits. Thank you.
Then what can Asia offer for the period of uncertainty of the world?
Another billion-dollar question. It's interesting. I think the beauty of Asia is there's a lot of civilizations that exist that have existed for thousands of years, 5,000 years plus. And these civilizations have inherent wisdom that are as relevant, I think, as they are important and necessary today than they've ever been. That these are timeless, eternal, philosophies and perspectives that have stood the test of time and actually are very much in need today. So I think we can definitely touch on what is universal, what has worked, and what could work, in the world today. I want to briefly talk about a few different points. Just more specifically, the Quad is a great example of one such, collaboration between, cross different regions in the world. I mean, Quad obviously is this geostrategic alliance between Japan, the US, Australia, and India. And they are set to play a great role in the coming decades, so we shall keep a watch out for that. Lloyd J. Austin, who is the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, has repeatedly said that this is a US grand strategy, and that their grand strategy is in the Indo-Pacific, and that the Quad is central to this strategy, and India and Japan are key to the Quad. So I think these two countries must really work a lot more together. I think they can contribute vastly. Then, of course, there is the BRICS. I think this is the future of the world. BRICS is not just a metaphor. It's not just a soundbite or a meme. I think you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a astrologer to predict that the future of the world economically will be dictated by the BRICS. They will be at the forefront. But these countries need to rise and step up to the plate. And also, I think there needs to be a bit of humility from the West to accept that there are other sane voices, other leaders, or other nations that have good ideas, and that they can be, powerful and can lead us to a better world, so to speak. So I think it takes two to tango, and I think there's a need to step up and also a need to be more humble. I mean, if there's one takeaway from the recent G20 summit, it is that globalization is over. The U.S. Dominance is just steadily sort of, at least, I won't say declining, that wouldn't be right, but it's plateaued to a point, and this makes up room for other great powers to emerge. The world is truly multipolar. Asia is being shaped largely by the outlook of the US, the power of China, the weight of Russia, the collectivism of the ASEAN region, the volatility of the Middle East, and of course the undeniable rise of India. So again, I'll just touch on the Indian perspective. I think what India can offer is something unique. Its worldview is by nature consultative, democratic, and equitable. Needs to find clearer expression, but this would be the time to do it. So I do think that the global south is a perfect term, and it is excruciatingly important for us moving forward. 2050, the world will look very different than it does today, and the powers that will be leading the world will, whether you like it or not, will be very different to the powers that lead it today. That's just Mother Nature, in a way, taking its course. And I do think that it's important that as a collective, as a humanity, we realize that we have a great opportunity here to, I think, set ourselves for a better world. And look, nothing beats the truth and love and freedom and light and all those beautiful things. And again, they're not just talking points. I mean, it's very much pragmatic and can be very real for the world as well. I think cooperation, dialogue, peace is important. It's very sad to see in the face of war, where there are so many countries who are almost pushing for more war and worse off a warlike situation, the sane voices, the few sane voices that were asking for dialogue and peace were completely sidelined, right? And it's sad to see that. I think those voices need to be louder as well. And the only way really is peace, and come to the high table and hash it out there. And there is a better way for us out there. And I guess that's why we're gathered here. But this is where it's all going to happen. And I think you are all a part of that. So get engaged in geopolitics and foreign policy of your countries and the world at large. And let's make it a better world. Thank you.
So I would like, but I have to ask you for your last important message to all the audience and to the world.
Okay, I'll keep it short and sweet. This is so apt. This is a quote from the Minister of External Affairs of India, Dr. Jaishankar, and he so eloquently put it in this way. I don't think I can do better than this. He's talking specifically about India, but it relates to Asia as much. This is a time for us to engage America, manage China, cultivate Europe, reassure Russia, bring Japan into play, draw neighbors in, extend the neighborhood, and expand traditional constituencies of support. So I think it's time for India to rise and step up. It's time for Asia to rise. It's not just the Asian century, but the Asian decade. So make it count, and Godspeed.